we go. All right. Let's see if I got the LinkedIn going. My dog started barking. That's perfect.
Thank you.
That's the best timing. What's
Housing.
happening, nerds? I do this show for like 6 years, not 6 years. I do this show for however long I've been doing this show and get in and talk to people. And then the moment I mention that we've got a nuclear physicist joining us, people start sharing and connecting and talking. And I'm like, okay, so if I talk about the hospitality world, if I talk about restaurants and hotels, everyone in my network is like, Leslie, we know about all that. We don't need any of your insights. We're already experts. There's no conversation to be had. But if I mention something about any other industry, now all you nerds are interested. Like that's shocking to me that you all know so much about restaurants and hotels. Actually, you do. And you're going to be really disappointed because my friend Matt here is a nuclear physicist, but the whole goal is to prove that what he does and what we do in our industry are one and the same. Maybe not, but pretty close. So you're going to be really disappointed today because you think you're hearing about something else, but it's just restaurants and hotels in disguise. So this is not a podcast. I am Leslie Wootton, and I've got my good friend Matt Jackson here. Matt.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. Just enjoying the day.
Enjoying the day. So you are a nuclear physicist.
Yes, I am a physicist who works in the nuclear industry. Yes.
I love it. What does that mean? What? It's a fantastic title. I work in an industry where people just give themselves titles all day long, and they mean almost nothing. They're like, "Oh, you're the manager of this." I'm like, "Okay, that's not a thing." But I don't think you just gave yourself a title. I would love to give myself that title. If I was to give myself that title, what would it mean that I
Uh, say it again.
What do you do? What do you do all day?
So what I do, mostly I do a bunch of R&D testing. So we develop radiation detectors. My company does, and so whenever they have some new product or some different electronics package or something like that, I'm the one who kind of goes in and figures out how to test it and what parameters it needs to meet and test it against standards that we have and everything has to do with radiation and trying to detect radiation. So I have radiation sources that I get to use and that's basically it. And lots of spreadsheets, lots of data acquisition, lots of data analysis, and that's pretty much what I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's fun, and I don't know if you realize what you've agreed to here, is Matt and I are going to be talking about a few different things, aligning on some topics of how he does it in the world of physics and radiation and what we'll learn more about versus restaurants, hotels, and hospitality. So we're going to go through safety and sanitation a little bit today, talk about what we have similar, what we don't, what his risks are versus our risks. And I think there's going to be some clear examples there. But then in future conversations, we're going to talk about innovation. Matt talked about R&D, what that means for restaurants, what that means for him. Is it the same? What parts are the same? What parts aren't? We're going to go through people and processes. And like it or not, I'm going to talk about AI, like what AI does, how it helps, where it goes into.
Oh yeah, I use AI all the time. So.
Why not? Yeah. So excited to hear about that. And then vendors, we're going to talk about, where you go to get what you need, how that works. And, we'll talk about sourcing, like where do you get your tomatoes? Are they locally sourced or somewhere else? But then, for you, what kind of diode? Is that even a word? Diodes that I don't know. Somewhere in there. So I want to learn about that. And then really all leading up to kind of the leadership conversation. How how we take the people element of your industry, my industry, and what that means. And so I'm super excited to get to that. But safety and sanitation. So if you don't mind, I'll jump right in.
Go ahead.
So for us, a lot of what really matters is what you can't see. When you think about what should I be worried about at a restaurant, it's not the disarray of the tables, or even honestly a table that has dirty dishes on it. If you were to walk into a restaurant and see that, be like, oh, okay, they're not clean here. I'm like, no, they're just a little behind. What you need to worry about are the things that you can't see. And a lot of times that's, did the cook wash his hands after he used the restroom? And you don't know those things. Those are the things you need to worry about. So I'm thinking bacteria, and I imagine you're thinking radiation. What are the things that you have to worry about that are the invisible parts?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what we deal with, is something that you can't see. It's something you can't see, you can't feel necessarily. There's you could be exposed to high levels of radiation, and you never know it until you get sick or you develop symptoms. So that's basically what we deal with, is unseen dangers, like somebody's trying to drive a piece of uranium across the border. So that's one of the things that I kind of specialize in is illicit materials detection, because those you can't. I mean, there's no way to really detect them unless you have a radiation detector. So yeah, that's exactly that's what we deal with, is stuff that's unseen, and we have to figure out ways to see it, and then if somebody figured out a way to shield it, then we have to figure out ways around that. So that's a lot of what this business is finding unseen things.
That's fantastic. Because a lot of what we do in the safety sanitation world is not find those things, because we don't have bacterial detection, or even some of our tests or procedures or audits don't check for bacteria exactly. A lot of our audits make sure that things that we do are preventing those things, at least in theory.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So some of yours is theory, and you're like, okay, this should work, but until you go detect it, you don't.
Oh yeah, it all takes a whole lot of testing, and a lot of it takes there's a lot of government regulations for what we do, and so it has to meet certain government specs, and so it's a lot of there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of regulations we have to deal with. So
same. If we get it wrong, at least on the micro bacterial world, we're going to have a health outbreak, or some of the sorry, spinach, but I'm going with the there's a spinach outbreak, or bird flu, or something in there that's affecting something that's showing up, and they figure that out, and then we've got to react to that. So lots of people get sick. Typically that's the worst of it. What's going to happen if you miss out on some of those micro observations?
It's a little bit worse than that. We've all heard the term dirty bomb. So I mean, that's basically, it's not an atomic explosion, but they're blowing up radioactive material so that it gets dispersed into the air, and the whole area becomes laced with the radioactive material. And so if we don't catch stuff coming over the border that a person could potentially use to make one of these, then that's obviously very bad. Another one that industry that we are in is in steel mills. So the steel industry uses these large radiation sources to do different measuring of densities and stuff of materials. The trouble is, occasionally they get mixed in with scrap steel. And so these cargo trains and stuff carrying steel into these steel refineries, they pass through radiation detectors to make sure there's no radiation in there. if those fail and then actually the source gets in and they smelt this radioactive source of the steel, then you have a whole bunch of steel that's radioactive and is unusable. So that's or would be bad to use. So yeah, it's definitely there's a hazard there that we have to watch out for, and we can't make a mess of it.
And it sounds like a lot of that is people focused, that it's a personal mistake or missed observation or something, and it's not always the tools that make the mistake. I'm sure that there are. Like for us,
I mean that's so we try to make everything as foolproof as possible. So yeah, so that we try to take out the human element as much as possible, make these things so where they're kind of automatic. But yeah, if you have equipment failure, power failure, or something like that, then yeah, it causes a problem. Or somebody just accidentally turns it off, which has happened before.
Turn all the not that one.
Yeah, it's like, this alarm's going off. Let's turn that off. Yeah.
I laugh. So I've been around the restaurant world, and I know what we're supposed to do or not do, and some things that at one point seemed pretty common and just taken for granted. People now know don't do that. And if I'm in a restaurant, for example, I'm somewhere and I see, I see that you've got servers in the background and they're taking one ketchup and marrying a ketchup, which is something where people take old ketchup and put it into another so that they can consolidate it. They marry the ketchup there. I see that happening. I immediately think, while that particular incident may not be harmful, but the fact that they're doing that, the fact that they're taking old product and mixing it with new product, especially in a jar that's who knows how long it's been there, who knows how long that ketchup down at the bottom of that has constantly been there. And so if I'm in a restaurant and I see people marrying ketchups or anything similarly, I immediately think this place is contaminated. And maybe it's just gross. What are some things that you might see that are similar that you're like, okay, you could walk through a lab or you could walk through somewhere. What would you see that would be an immediate indicator of this one thing might not be, the problem, but if they're not aware of this, they're very likely to have something very wrong in this place?
Well, we have a lot of protective measurements that we have to adhere to when we're doing things as far as personal protection and things like that. So yeah, if you see somebody that or someplace that doesn't have the proper dosimetry, or which is here, let me say it. Grab some real quick.
Live show, friends. Live show. That is an actual picture of your lab back there with your crystal.
My mad scientist lab. Yeah, absolutely. So this is I have to wear this when I work with radiation sources. So this is a dosimeter. This basically just measures how much radiation I'm exposed to. I don't actually work with the big sources. I use a lot of small sources, so that it really never registers for that. Occasionally I'll have to do something with the bigger source, but so yeah, that's one of the things you have to make sure that everybody has the proper documentation, the proper preventive measures to testing. And like we have a chemistry lab as well that you walk in there and everybody's wearing lab coats and safety glasses and everything. That's something that's regulated that needs to happen. So if you go in someplace and they're kind of lax on the personal protective equipment and stuff like that, then yeah, there's an issue.
And even if that particular moment, like they're not wearing goggles in this lab, okay, everybody's eyes probably safe right now, but the fact that they're not doing that tells me that there's other shortcuts that they're taking.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah,
So we've got a question. So the question from Lindsay, thank you. How do you approach risk assessment in nuclear physics, and how might that approach be applied to identifying potential hazards in a hospitality setting? My first thought is maybe a little bit about what we're talking about here. So maybe we've answered some of that question, but how do you approach that risk assessment? Where would you start with an audit? And I know you've got your detector that you would wear. What would you first do walking into a lab if you were intentionally trying to audit, or just casually walking through and your experience is looking at things going, that's off, that's off? What are you looking for?
Well, the first thing you want to look at is the security of the place. So, yeah, any place that uses where there's radiation involved, or they have radioactive sources, there should be security involved. So we have all our sources are locked up. Some of them are actually documented sources, licensed sources that we have to record every time it moves from one place to another, or anybody checks it out or anything. So we just have to make sure that we know where they are at all times. So to prevent that, but yeah, I've been a few national labs, and that's what you see it's basically like a military base. You gotta get in. It's a secure location. So that's security, I think, is a big factor, and who has access to these potentially harmful things, and yeah, that's something you really need to look at.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So we coming to the restaurant side of it, we don't exactly have security or lockdown. We do. Most places have a liquor cage where we're trying to keep that more regulated to make sure that our spend is there.
It's the same thing, because you have to, when you have a bar, you have to know how much liquor is being dispersed, how much each shot goes into each shot, and that way you can not only figure out the costing of things, but figure out the usage of things. So that's it's similar.
Yeah. No, I understand one's a much greater risk, but we're looking for what those similarities are, just so that maybe I can learn to speak a little bit of your language better. Okay, so you do inventory, you do this, your risk is higher, but a lot of procedures are similar. And bringing it back to the hospitality world, you talked about walking into a lab, you might see people using or not using PPE. There's also a matter of, are they using it correctly? I've absolutely been as a guest, not somebody who was able to engage and step in, but I've seen cooks and that have a pair of gloves on for the duration of their shift. They use it in the dish pit. They use it to cook. They use it to wipe their brow, and the gloves are there. Yeah,
that's kind of the purpose of gloves. Yeah.
It's protecting them and them only. And I'm watching this. I'm like, man. So they're wearing the gloves. Check. But somewhere in my thought is that it's not an individual issue. It's a managerial issue. It's a training issue that management's not doing anything about it. That do you have on gloves? Check. It's like having on gloves and using them properly, very different things. Because if you're cooking with gloves and moving dirty dishes with gloves and going back to at some point, you've got to change these gloves out, or your personal protective equipment is only protecting you, the personal person.
Yeah.
What could you see that somebody would be doing it wrong, and how do you identify whose fault that is? If they're doing it wrong, how do you fix it?
So I'm going to switch to what I do, which is testing. Right. So there's a lot of procedures for testing, and there's a proper way to do it, and that's an issue that I have is when somebody comes in and have to train them to test, I have to teach them what to look for. So somebody's not going to come in and immediately know, hey, this is the way this graph is supposed to look, or whatever. So I have to. That's a lot of it is me teaching it, and it's a process, and that's something that if it's done wrong, then the equipment that goes out the door might not be functioning correctly, and so we have to. And that means it's not going to be doing its job when it gets there properly. So that's one thing that we really have to watch out for. Or I have to watch out for is the fact that to make sure that everything is tested correctly and has the proper properties for what it's supposed to do before it goes out the door, to make sure that when it gets to the customer, it actually works the way it's supposed to, and is detecting what it's supposed to.
No, that's fantastic. That's in my world, that's the same as I'm going to make sure everybody knows what they're doing. Not only does the food look good and it's prepared right, but it's safe, so that when it gets to the table, it's what you expect it to be, and that we as owners, operators, chefs don't have to inspect every single plate because our team knows, but then they're also motivated to do it. So I think on the same topic, got a question from Gary. Gary, love that you're here. Thank you, sir. I would think he says, I would think in labs, temp control is very important. He's restaurant industry. We also have trouble monitoring temp control. Any advice on how to best control or monitor that? And my initial thought is, because while a thermometer is accurate, it doesn't always tell the whole truth, because you open a door or close a door. How do you best monitor it in your world?
Well, so a lab is a little bit more of a controlled environment than a kitchen is. Like, there's venting issues with, anytime you're, and this is talking about our chemistry lab. But yeah, so you have vent hoods that you mix stuff in and stuff. And yeah, there's always, especially here in Texas, it's hot outside and it pulls in outside air, and you have to worry about the air contamination and everything like that. So everything is enclosed pretty much in these vent hoods, so they can work kind of with limited air draw into it. So that helps a lot. It's like I said, it's a little bit more controlled than you would have in a kitchen. You wouldn't be able to have those things in a kitchen, and you have a lot more heat in the kitchen than you do usually in a lab, hopefully. If you have a lot of heat in a lab, then you're probably doing something wrong. Temperature control, that's, as far as the lab goes, vent hoods and proper enclosures for your reactions, and it would be difficult to do that in the kitchen.
Similar, though, and I get the, again, the risk factors are different. With we're more contamination, you're more explosion. So I get it. Also, that's the technical side of it. We've got the thermometers, we've got the enclosures, we've got the vent hoods. There's also the people side of it. And I was talking about, the gloves, and somebody, well, I'm doing the safety thing. Like, you're not doing it right. And at some point when we train, we're creating a habit. But that habit isn't always inspirational. So one thing that I'm always looking for is not just creating a habit so that people know what to do and are supposed to do it, but finding that kind of the safety culture, being able to motivate them to want to do it. And I think that is a great way to make sure that your control is there, your monitor is there, is get people motivated to want to do it. And that really takes, my opinion, my experience, leadership. Somebody who's like, not just preaching and cheerleading for safety, but like, here's what we get out of it. Here's how this helps you and us to be safe and to be consistent with these things. How do you shape something so that it's not just a trained habit? How do you turn it into something that somebody actually wants to do? Is that anything that, from your leadership perspective, you're able to do? Take something from a habit, turn it more into a desire or culture?
I think a lot of it. So you have to have pride in your work, and that's one of the things that when we make our things that we make, we just we want to make sure that there's no contamination or anything. We want to make sure everybody's protected. But then we, a lot of our stuff we sell to national labs and government agencies, and I think for us, it's letting them know that what they're doing matters in the world. And so they have pride in their work, and they make sure, and they try to make sure that it's done right. If they know that at the end of the game, this is going to, help protect a nation against somebody bringing in something, or this is going to help image the pyramids or something like that. That's which we've actually done, which is a really cool project. But yeah, it's letting them know that because a lot of our employees don't have the full picture of what they do. They do their one little part of it, but the bigger picture they don't really know. So I think that's kind of important, is to let them know that hey, this is going over here. This is what it's going to do, and it's awesome. So yeah.
I love that. The end result, what you're doing it for, you're not just on an assembly line. It's not just that this goes in here and you're supposed to wear goggles while you're doing it. And I think it's similar for our leaders in our industry as well. To when you're talking to your kitchen, we don't just talk about standards or how to dice or saute or create something, not just how to carry a tray, but what you're doing and who you're doing it for. I think that kind of cultural leadership engagement helps people better adhere to the standards and mitigate the risks. Because if they've got a feeling of accomplishment, they know that this is going to the pyramids or the Mars rover or whatever it might be. That they're more inclined to give a shit about the safety behind it.
Somebody that, hey, the thing you were working on, that's on the International Space Station now. Then it's important to them. Yeah.
Is that something you build into your training or your onboarding?
Yeah, we actually do. When we bring a new hire in, and we have a whole tour that we give them, and we give them, kind of explain what each division is doing, and then but there's also a part where we're like, hey, this is, and we have a display. We have this is the sister of this piece is actually on a satellite going through the asteroid belt, or something like that. So this is we do show them that what the industry is and what it's about, and where some of the cool stuff that we do.
I love that. And we've got a ton of audience. This is fun. So another question and I think it relates. So I'm gonna give this one to you, and I'm gonna take the second part of it. So how do you ensure comprehension and adherence to critical protocols in your environment? How do you know that they understand what they're supposed to do? How do you validate what you're teaching?
Pay attention to the questions they ask, because that's a good indication that either they're paying attention and they're trying to understand it better, or they're just nodding their head and saying okay, and there's no real comprehension. So I think if you have an employee that asks a lot of questions, then that's a good sign. That means that they're trying to understand it. If you have somebody that because nobody's going to go in knowing everything there is to know. There has to be questions. So that's to me that's so when I have somebody in, and when I'm training somebody who asks a lot of questions, it doesn't just follow instructions, who actually wants to know why it's working this way, that's a good person that needs to be, that you get that they're trying to understand it, which is important.
I love that, and that sounds like kind of our leadership strategies in the hospitality world as well. Is you need to know why you're doing the thing, and somebody who's engaged in asking questions. Not only is it important for leadership to engage with them and hear them out and show them that we're listening and give them that attention, but if we shut down those questions, if we just read the book or just follow the instructions, or we're that leader who doesn't like to be asked questions, all you're doing is shutting down the people that are curious and actually going to help make sure that things are safe. Of what's that red light over there, and not that's who you want in your kitchen or your lab. And so
it's the same thing with me. I encourage questions, because questions, I want them to make sure that they're doing it right. So if they have any question about, is this the right way to do it, they need to ask it, because if they don't ask it and they just say, oh, well, whatever, then they might not be doing it right. And that's an issue.
I love that. And that's a leadership challenge. And I think that's safe to say in both our worlds. So another question before we start to wrap up. And I like this one. This is from Gary again. And I'm going to give this one to you because I don't even know what it means. Maybe I do. I don't.
Okay.
In your opinion, how safe is irradiated food?
Perfectly safe.
Okay. Well, what does that mean?
Well, a lot
Perfectly
of,
safe, he says, Gary.
radiated food. So basically, they use radiation to sterilize it. Basically, they kill all the bacteria and everything in it. There's a common misconception that if something is hit with radiation, it does not become radioactive. So that's a lot of people think that that's the case. It's been exposed to radiation, it must be radioactive. That's not how it works. You have to have actual radioactive particles. So if somebody sprinkled, powdered americium on it, which is what they use in smoke detectors.
Okay. Say it again.
So it would be, then you have radioactive material on it, and so it's radioactive. But if you just expose it to high levels of radiation, which is how they irradiate food, it doesn't actually become radioactive, and it actually is. It's safe, and it's less likely to perish. It kills all the bacteria in it, so it's more it stays longer. So there's no issues with that.
That's fun. That's a good question, Gary. Is there a way, and I'm gonna try to wrap up on this one. Is there a way, instead of just irradiated food, we could go back to that cook who wants to wear the same gloves all day? Can we irradiate his hands so that he doesn't have to worry about gloves anymore?
That might be a little bit more difficult because that's exposure to radiation isn't generally considered a good thing. So you might kill the what's living on the outside of the gloves, but you're also attacking what's inside the gloves as well. So that's
fine. Is it scarier than salmonella? I don't know. Maybe we'll discuss that on a future episode.
Okay.
Any final thoughts, Matt, and I'll wrap us up.
None that I can think of, but I've really enjoyed this. I appreciate it. It's been fun, man.
No, I'm thrilled. This is great. I appreciate.
Thanks to everybody.
Yeah, no, the comments are great, on point. Thinking through things, it's fantastic. I am going to get you on another episode. It's going to happen. I'm going to shoot for same day, same time next week, but I understand your schedule could change. So anybody who is watching this or looking, we're going to shoot for Friday, but subject to change. We'll make it work. In the future, we're going to be talking about your R&D, what that looks like. I'm going to challenge it with what it looks like in the hospitality world. We're going to talk about people, processes, vendor relationships, and we touched upon it here. We're going to be talking about leadership in the nuclear world as well as the hospitality world. So, Matt, thank you.
Good time.
We'll see you later, boss. Adios. Right. Thanks, everybody.